Hey, what is up? This is the Leafs Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. I'm NJ and LDN, and my good friend MIB is in BUF. We are your hosts, going on almost a full 3 seasons now, covering the Maple Brothers inside and out. Speaking of 2 straight wins after a 4-1 victory over the Jets, sweeping the Winnipeggers back on this ascent upwards. How long will they ascend, and will there be any end to it? Remains to be seen. Mr. A, good Sunday morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Norm. I had somebody, I think it was Kevin Allen from USA Today, or formerly of USA Today, on our Buzzcast on Friday, describe the Leafs as sort of being dozy. And like that 5 games after the trade deadline, it was almost like they let the foot off the gas pedal a little bit. They got a couple points, loser points, but it just seemed that the 60-minute effort was sort of inconsistent, that they would allow gaps and the other team would take advantage of it, or their goaltender would let in goals that a junior B goaltender would stop. So that was what happened for the week or so after the deadline. But when they come up against a team like Winnipeg, who is a team they could face in the playoffs, and a team that was the closest to them in the standing, the team that we've seen for most of the year showed up. And like you said before we started recording, they were getting contributions from throughout the lineup. It wasn't just Matthews and Marner. The fourth line was producing. The bottom pairing was looking good. I mean, it was just Jack Campbell was providing constant goaltending. It was all throughout the lineup, and maybe there was a little credibility to them being sort of dozy and lazy, but they got a wake up call on Thursday when they played Winnipeg, and now they have swept the Jets. And I think unless there's a massive collapse in the last 8 games, they're going to win the North Division.
Yeah, 65 points with 8 games to go. I think the President's Trophy nearly out of the cards, but a Scotia North crown, for what it's worth, good, and a step in the right direction. Look, this team could win 5 in a row and then lose its last 3, and then go into the playoffs and lose 3 and then win 4, whatever the format is. It's a roller coaster ride that we're all a part of and trying to enjoy to the best of our ability. What I like about the last 2 games is that they kind of pushed their closest competitor in the division back a bit with play that you could say wasn't reliant upon 1 or 2 individuals. It was spread right across the lineup. Last night, all the lines scored. You're getting contributions from the young'uns, from the old'uns, from the stars, from the contributors. This kind of mosaic at this point of the season is what I want to see. So I'm pleased over the last 48, 72 hours with what has transpired.
Well, look at the 2 games and look at the key goals. You would have to say the key goals of each game. Game 1, Leafs scored 2 goals in the first minute and a half, shoot out to a 2-0 lead, blow that lead in the first period. It's 2-2. And who scores the goal to make it 3-2 and put them in the lead for the rest of the game? It's the Spezza, Thornton, Adam Brooks line. Yep. Spezza getting credit for the goal, although everybody thought Thornton had scored it. The next night, Ehlers scores less than a minute into the game, and then a few minutes later, what line scores the tying goal to right the ship? The Thornton
Jotho
Spezza line. So that fourth line, and I know that a lot of people have been critical of Joe Thornton.
For what?
Because he hadn't scored in 20 games. But
he's the oldest Leaf to ever score.
But you have to understand the fact that he's Joe Thornton, and people are expecting, even at 41 years old, even as a fourth liner, to score. And that's the thing. Now, over the last,
and he did last night.
Yeah, but this is the thing. Over the last few games, you've seen, I think Thornton, I think subconsciously a lot of these veteran guys were saying, okay,
million percent. I know exactly where you're going.
Yeah, they're like,
here we go. It's time. Let's go.
Yeah, conserving their energy, saying, okay, now is the time, especially this 2-game set against Winnipeg. Winnipeg wins both of these games. First place in the division is up for grabs. So what happens? Simmons shows up. Thornton shows up. Thornton shows up in a physical way, getting under the skin of Nick Ehlers to the point that Ehlers is losing his head. Spezza shows up, and so all the veterans show up at a specific time. And I would think that when the playoffs roll around in the middle of May, that these players are going to show up. Even if they drop off a little bit in the remaining 8 games, they know when to turn it on and when not to turn it on.
This is the Leafs Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario. Norm and Mike, check out my Facebook page at Norm at Oak Ridge Ford. I have pictures of one of the most iconic sports cars of all time, the GT 500. We have it in our showroom with tax. You know, we get taxed pretty heavily here, as you do in New York State, Mike. You're looking at like $170,000 for this car, 800 horsepower.
The People's Republic of New York.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, stop. Let's go. Enough out of you there, Newt. Enough, Newt. So let me just finish what I'm saying about our sponsor.
I'm sorry. Okay. Go ahead.
The GT 500 Shadow Black carbon fiber track pack. I know one of the OGs has some money under the mattress and is ready to make a purchase. I just wanted you guys to check it out. Plus 0% on Escape continues on. There's like barely any left on our lot now. It almost resembles the truck situation. But we continue forth in the car business as we do with the podcast business. The Maple Brothers really impressing me with the way they all contributed over the last 2 games against Winnipeg. And look, a show ago, we were lamenting the goaltending and wondering if the Leafs had what it took to take it to the next level. And then here we are 2 wins later, feeling a lot better about how things may transpire. Mike, and not to get too far ahead of ourselves, and you play interdivisional your first 2 rounds of the playoffs. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping after what the Leafs have learned through the 56 that they can, if all goes well, and I know this is ideal and it's probably not going to happen, just get through those first 2 rounds as quickly as possible. Is that possible?
I don't think so, because these teams, after playing each other 10 and 9 times through 56 games, are so well aware of the, traits positively and negatively of their opposition that it's going to lead to really tight series. Now, I think that the Leafs can and will get out of the first 2 rounds, get out of the North Division? Yeah, sure. But there's no guarantee. I mean, you get a hot Connor Hellebuyck in the second round series against Winnipeg. He could win that series on his own. So
that's a drink at Starbucks, the hot Connor Hellebuyck.
Yes, with cinnamon sprinkled on top of it. Yeah, but to that point, it's like, I mean, it's going to be. Honestly, I think the first round, depending on who they play, it could be tough. I mean, let's just say that I don't think that the Leafs are under any illusions that it's going to be a cakewalk through the North Division. And thankfully, I think that's good to have that kind of mindset, because you do that. If they had that mindset against Columbus, they got punched in the mouth last year because Columbus beat them in 5 games. Yeah, and they're lucky it was 5 games because they had that comeback and the 3-goal comeback late in Game 4. Otherwise, I mean, you can't take anybody for granted, and I think any series against any team that they play against is going to be tough.
It's full steam ahead, but with this team, it comes to a head, and then there's a regression, right? It's 10 steps forward, 7 steps back, 10 forward, 6 back. Right. But that trend can't continue for much longer. It really can't. And if the veterans who've been conserving their energy and mentally getting prepared for this next grind, as Joe's played a million playoff games, Spezza wants his chance back in the spotlight. Simmons, Foligno, these guys on this team, Goaltending, all these guys, this is, if it doesn't all come together for a group like this who have, a lot of different identities, different reasons personally for why they want to succeed, coming together as a collective, and it doesn't bear fruit, then you got to applaud Kyle Dubas for trying, but then the organization has to be cursed, because this really does seem like the right mix of guys pending professional and competent goaltending. Just want to go through a couple of comments and then we'll continue on. We'll go a little longer today because we do have a few days to let this content season. David Hayna, that a boy. Joe, go Leafs, go. Mike, you hit the nail on the head with Thornton starting to process what's going on right now, where we are in the late stages of the regular season, getting prepared for the playoffs. Johnny, what a difference a week makes. You've got that right, Johnny. Silent Night, Norm, the next ravishing YouTube World Heavyweight Champion, hit his music. Where is the music? I don't hear it anywhere. Silent Night, thank you very much for that. Caleb Merstrom, the Big Bad Leafs. I'm loving the pushback this team has, and it's much needed.
Well, okay. This was the thing. A lot of people pointed to Wayne Simmons pushing Pierre-Luc Dubois out of the crease, trying to crowd Jack Campbell in Thursday night's game, and then basically pushing him against the boards, and mouthing off at Dubois at the end of game 2 on Saturday and getting a misconduct. See, this is the thing. People have to remember, and Wayne Simmons wasn't here when this happened. Pierre-Luc Dubois is the guy who put out Jake Muzzin in the playoffs last year. Now he didn't hit him, but he threw him off kilter, and there was and Muzzin ended up getting hurt. And Dubois was the key point for Columbus beating the Leafs in the play-in game. Yep. They know that. The team knows that, and I'm sure like Dubois and Winnipeg didn't have Adam Lowry, who's one of their tougher guys in the lineup, but the Leafs clearly were sending a message in this 2-game set when Alex Galchenyuk hits Blake Wheeler, hit Lowry, because that's why Lowry was out. Hit Lowry, and Joe Thornton with the stuff with the Ehlers, and he hit Matthew Perreault. There was the most important one, and we'll talk about him in a minute, Rasmus Sandin with the double cheek check, the Nicholas Kronwall check on Blake Wheeler. I mean, the Leafs, without getting goonish, stepped it up physically, which is what you have to do in a playoff scenario. Is you have to throw hits. You have to be physical. Maybe they're not going to pile up as many hits as the opposition, but to do what they did and sort of punch the other team in the mouth, that's what you have to do.
And Mike, we know that hockey is going to go from ice capades to rollerball like that.
Right. And the players that the Leafs have, even, Joe Thornton has never been known as a super tough guy in his career, but later in his career with San Jose, when they made their playoff run, I think it was 16 when they made the Cup final against Pittsburgh. He was physical, and he's a big dude. And I think he realizes with his offensive game slipping from his heyday, he's got to find other ways to contribute. And this is the reason he came to Toronto, is to win, is to advance, is to have a chance at winning a Stanley Cup. So he's going to do everything he possibly can, including being physical. I've seen him lay out some hits. I've seen, and I've also seen him, with Ehlers has been a Leaf killer all year. And he scored the opening goal on Saturday. And if you don't think he was thrown off by Thornton sort of getting in his kitchen and sort of jabbing him and frustrating him, look at the end of the game when Thornton was mouthing off at him in the penalty box. Yep. It got under his skin, and that's
of course it did. Yeah. Well, that's by design too.
Sure.
we'll keep going on about Joe here, and he's just a cog in the wheel, regardless of his illustrious career and where he's headed after the game. Probably to a slow pitch diamond on the outskirts of St. Thomas. He's hanging around in his truck. That's good old Joe, and then the Hall of Fame as well. But the intensity, he can smell it. He knows it. Despite the wacky season and however the playoffs unfold, he can sense it. It's in his blood. It's intrinsic. So good on Joe Thornton. Good on the diversity of the lineup. Everybody contributing. This is what I've wanted to see. I hope it continues. I really do. I hope we're not looking at the last couple of games of the regular season and going, what the fuck? This team has lost 3 straight going into the playoffs, and now it has to rekindle the magic again. Get on an ascent and take off. Seriously, just take off and go get this thing. We want to throw some shout outs at a few other players. Nick Foligno in a moment. He's looked really good, and he's just coming to do what he needs to do, playing on different, in kind of a different situation throughout his first couple of games. Rasmus Sandin, he's getting some shout outs in the chat. Caleb Merkstrom, the Sandman. Arun Rajakumar. Sandin looks like he's fitting in well with the big boys. Okay, so against Vancouver on April 20th, 16 minutes of ice time, 19 shifts, 20 shifts against Winnipeg in the first of the 2. He was a +1 out there for about 13 and change, and then another almost 14 minutes of ice time last night. Picked up a point. Looked good on that backup power play unit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, okay, this is the thing that's extremely impressive. Rasmus Sandin, I believe, up until the game against Vancouver, had played 1 professional game in a calendar year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, ever since the Marlies had, he'd played, I think, 26, 27 games with the Leafs. When Riley was hurt and Muzzin was hurt late in the regular season before COVID hit, but he seemed at that point, he definitely has the offensive talent.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been there. You've seen that at the World Juniors. You've seen him as a premier power play quarterback at the AHL and at the junior level, but not at the NHL level, and that comes with time. But I have a feeling that in that year that he was off, he did a lot of work in the gym, because he's a lot stronger of a player. At least he appears to be. In 3 games in than he was getting pushed off the puck a lot. He doesn't seem to be being pushed off the puck behind the goal line along the boards as he did as a younger player. And he got hurt in his first AHL game and then was out for 6 weeks. So this is a guy who hasn't played at all in a calendar year, and he comes in and it's like he's been playing for 30 games at the AHL level, and he's played really well, not made any big mistakes. He's been surprisingly physical. I mean, not only the check on Wheeler, but I saw him throw a couple checks against Winnipeg on Thursday, and the pass that he made on the 2-on-1 goal that ended up being the Tavares goal, it was a perfect lead pass to Nylander that sprung Tavares for the goal. It's a pass that a lot of defensemen can't make or fail to make at certain points. And this is a 21-year-old kid, and he led Nylander perfectly to spur that odd man break. Somebody said, and I agree with this, and I can't remember who it was. It may have been Terry Koshan on Twitter last night, that right now Sandin is putting up a case for when Bogosian comes back for being the 6th defenseman instead of Travis Dermott. And I do believe that, because the aspect that Sandin provides.
Yes. Mike, just interrupt you. When Bogosian's back, he's back and he's playing. You need a guy like that in the playoffs.
Yeah. Because right now, okay, with Bogosian out, Dermott is taking his place on the penalty kill. When Bogosian is healthy, he's a staple on the penalty kill. So right now, in a battle of Sandin versus Dermott, Dermott can't play the second power play. Sandin can. And if you noticed last night, Sandin stepped in on the first power play for a couple opportunities in the third period. They wanted to get a look at what he would do on the first power play. Not to say that he's going to supplant Riley in the playoffs, but they want to see, because they don't want to take ice time away from Brody and Muzzin in the playoffs by them playing power play time, because that expends energy and they want those guys playing 5-on-5. So if they can have a guy on your bottom pairing playing power play minutes on the second pairing, that helps out the team 5-on-5. So I agree with Terry Koshan's assessment that Sandin right now is trying out for the playoffs. If Bogosian comes back. If Bogosian is not back at the beginning of the first round, then your bottom pairing is going to be Sandin and Dermott. But right now, Sandin has been impressive enough that that is a realistic possibility. So,
Mike Augello's with us from the moon tonight.
Why was I breaking up there?
It's a joke. It's awesome. Just a little bit. Bird watching life. Sandin's going to be a stud. Why is this is kind of a cool time for someone like Sandin, who's been in North America or had been selected by the Leafs 3 seasons ago. He's 21, so we're not waiting till he's 24. Let's get it going. But why is this a cool time for a guy like this to be able to entrench himself and make his name in this game during this early period of his career? Is it because the team might be taking flight here, and this is a really good time to kind of latch on to the momentum and build off of it, and then become a superstar kind of player next season?
Well, I think one of the aspects that is important here is that Sandin more than likely is going to be part of at least the top 6 and maybe the top 4 as soon as next year, because with the expansion draft, I think it's likely they lose either Justin Hall or Dermott. They could lose a forward, but I don't think that, Ron Francis in Seattle is going to, snag a Alex Kerfoot or a Pierre Engvall. Defensemen, especially young defensemen, are extremely valuable. And a guy like Dermott, who's 23, 24 years old, making less than $1 million, that's somebody who will be somebody that they would be interested in. So Sandin more than likely is going to be on the Leaf blue line next year. And if he can plug in earlier than expected, then that's just a benefit for the Leafs. I mean, Kyle Dubas was very confident going into the deadline. He still went out and got Ben Hutton, like I said, as Marinson insurance. But he was confident that Rasmus Sandin could step in case in an injury situation in the playoffs. And they're learning that was the case earlier because of Bogosian's injury.
I was unfair to Rasmus Sandin. I hadn't seen him in a while, and my concern is you drop this kid into the lineup, he's a deer in the headlights. The Leafs do not need passengers. You need someone who's assertive, someone who's confident, someone who's going to learn from a group in flight. And from what I've seen of 3 games, and me, I'm the most decorated and accredited scout there is today. I'm impressed, and I'm happy to see Sandin looking good, and I hope it continues for him and the team. Nick Foligno as a Maple Leaf, his first 2 games, a couple of apples, plenty of ice time. He's played with a bunch of different players. There's another guy who's come in with his own personal motivations, linking up with a bunch of dudes who have similar motivations. Again, what a nice eclectic mix of players. If you can't win a Stanley Cup with this diversity in the lineup and this much talent, then, hey, at least you tried. But I don't see how it gets much better than this, especially if you can get professional goaltending.
Well, okay. First on Foligno, a seamless transition.
Oh, for sure. Easy.
Just came in. I mean, could you tell that he was excited to have a chance at a playoff run, coming in wearing his dad's '93 Leafs baseball cap?
Yeah, that was cool. I had one of those.
Yeah, and it's so I mean, he clearly, I mean, he's going back to Columbus. He wants to be. He was team captain in Columbus. He wants to. His family lives in Columbus. He's comfortable with that organization. This is purely a rental situation, but he wanted to come and win with Toronto. His dad loved his days in blue and white. I've bumped into Nick Foligno or Mike Foligno as a scout at Marley's games and at Leaf games. And not had long conversations with him, but clearly he loved his time in Toronto. And that Game 5 overtime goal against Detroit in the first round is one of his career highlights. And if Nick Foligno scored an overtime goal with the Leafs, he'd probably do his dad's jump joy. But the whole point is, he's a veteran guy. It's a team with veteran guys. He played with Austin Matthews at the World Championships. He had a relationship with Jason Spezza going back to Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good guy, and he comes in. He doesn't create waves. He just wants to do whatever he can. They fit him in on the top line. He's played really well. He played on the penalty kill, because they've needed to replace the minutes lost by Zach Hyman.
Yeah.
And played well there. So, just a great acquisition. They paid a high price for it, but they paid a high price for a reason, because they knew the transition would be seamless.
The Leafs paid a high price to put themselves in the position they're in right now. I hope the goaltending doesn't blow this opportunity apart. And I hope it's not these guys, failing to come together, leaving a goaltender who's ready, whether it's Campbell or Freddie, out to dry.
Well, okay, just because I think it was sort of underreported over the two games. The especially in Game 1, especially against Winnipeg on Thursday,
Mm-hmm.
Campbell was sharp when it counted in the second and third period when the Leafs got the lead. Especially, he made a great glove save on a partial breakaway in the third period when they're up 4-3. He was the Leafs don't need spectacular stand on your head, Carey Price, Vasilevsky type goaltending. They just need do no harm. They just need competent goaltending. They don't need David Riddick, basically allowing goal. Like, if I could skate goals, shots that I could stop. So, that's what they, and Campbell gave them competent goaltending, good goaltending on Thursday, and competent goaltending on Saturday. And that's all they really need. Because he can make the big save. He's shown when he was hot that he could make the big save. But we don't, and this is the thing, Norm, we don't know. We expect Freddie Anderson is going to be back before the end of the regular season and maybe get a couple games, because the cap allows them to do that. If they put Hyman and Bogosian on long-term injury, they can fit Anderson's contract in, and they probably, if he's healthy enough, they will give him a start or two. But we don't know whether he's 100% or not. And if he's not 100%, then this is the guy. Then they really have no other choice. It's Jack Campbell or bust.
Why do I want to pad you up with Bob Sobe's equipment and just light you up with orange balls?
You don't want to see it, believe me. I was an all-star in street hockey, but
just howitzers, just bombs, clappers coming.
I was one of those guys who would charge out of the net and do like a double stack slide and
okay, a little bit of Ron Hextall, a little Billy Smith.
Yeah.
Just aggression.
Yeah, believe me.
A little Eddie Belfour. No playing around.
No,
Could you stick handle?
The Johnny Bauer poke check. I didn't wear a mask.
Run it around the boards real quick.
I wanted to emulate Terry Sawchuk because I didn't want to wear a mask. So that kind of stuff.
What year were you playing, man?
Well, no,
Are you a Norman Rockwell?
No, but
illustrate?
I read a lot. I read a lot of books about hockey history. I mean, obviously, Sawchuk died when I was 3 years old, but I was, I was always there was always somebody who held the Glenn Halls and the Bowers and the Jock Plants at them in high.
For sure.
Yeah, so like we played street hockey with a tennis ball. So if I took a tennis ball,
Cesar Maniago.
yeah, Gilles Villemure and Ed Jockerman, those guys, yeah. So
Doug Favell.
He looked better with a mask.
He's probably the worst mask in goaltending masked history.
Yeah,
hey, we'll wrap here real quick. Not too much going on in the chat. That's okay. Does Calgary catch Montreal, and would Calgary be more of a problem for the Maple Leafs if those two ended up meeting?
I don't think Calgary would be as much of a problem. If it's always a risky proposition to say I want to play this team ahead of this team. Are you going to sign up to play against Matthew Tkachuk? Remember, Matthew Tkachuk won a series in the play-in by himself by taking out Mark Scheifele in the first period of Game 1 against Winnipeg. That devastated Winnipeg, and they couldn't recover from that. But obviously, I think Montreal is deeper, especially in goal. Especially, Price over Markstrom. I think Price is better, although Price has not been healthy the last couple months. Yeah. So we don't know, but I think their defense is a lot better, and I think guys like Josh Anderson and Toffoli are other than Tkachuk, there's not really anybody scary on Calgary. Even Monahan and Goudreau have not had off years, and Milan Lucic, if he takes a run at somebody, he'll be in a box for half the game. But it's funny. The Leafs hold their first round opposition in their hands because they have 8 games remaining and 4 of them are against Montreal. So depending on what Montreal does against Toronto, they could face the Habs, or they could face Calgary, or they could face Vancouver, because Vancouver's got like 6 games in hand on the Habs. So it's not over with. But the funny thing is that if there's a question about whether Calgary or Vancouver can catch Montreal, the playoffs will be delayed based on that, because those Calgary-Vancouver games at the end of the year sort of bleed into when the first round of the playoffs were supposed to start. So we may not start the playoffs until like May the 20th.
And weren't we ready to forfeit the season on Vancouver? Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah.
If they play all these games and bomb into the playoffs and go nuts, that would just add even more crazy to a crazy season.
Well, they have a lot of games, and I'm just looking it up right now. They have a lot of games against Ottawa, and last night they beat Ottawa 4-2. They have, let's see, 1, 2. Let's see here. Okay, so they have 2 more against Ottawa, and then then their schedule gets really tough. Then they have to play 4 against Edmonton, 5 against Edmonton, 4 against Calgary. So for that, it's virtually impossible. It's probably Calgary, and right now Calgary's 4 points behind Montreal, and Montreal's got a game in hand. So if Montreal has anything left in the tank, they should be able to create enough space to finish in 4th. But who knows? You never know.
We could talk about it because it's happening. It's interesting. Does any of it matter when it comes to the Leafs' goals and their expectations? You better beat these teams. You can't win the Scotia North. Do what you've done and fall to one of these teams. You better make the semifinals. You have to.
Well, okay. Do I think? I definitely think that there will be questions, and there'll be a lot of hue and cry in Leafs if they lose to Montreal in the first round, because everybody knows Hab fans are those most obnoxious in the world, and have to let them have bragging rights over the Leafs because they won again for the first time since 1979. It'll be painful. But that being said, if I don't think there's going to be like, I mean, it would be disappointment. But if they lose to Winnipeg or Edmonton in the second round, if they lose to Connor McDavid or they lose to Winnipeg, people will be disappointed. But I think they'll say, okay, at least those teams are relatively good and they just came up short.
What's a Hab fan? What do they brag about? Like what?
Well, they would brag that they beat Toronto. That's what they would brag.
But I mean, right now, what are you proud of?
I mean, they're hideous right now. They're flailing about. I mean, their number one goaltender at the playoff start right now is Jake Allen, and Jake Allen has proven in a 7 or 8 year career one thing: he's not a number one goaltender. So, but if Carey Price is in goal and if everybody else is healthy, they will be tough.
Look over, Mike. Remind me again. The first round, is it a 3 of 5 or is it a 4-7?
4-7. Everything's 4-7.
So the 3 of 5's gone now.
Correct.
I OG's Commerce. Do you care? 3-5, 4-7. Let's just do. You need 16 wins to take this thing. Hey, some normalcy, Mike, in this odd season. So. We've watched through the regular season these ups and downs. So the Leafs, the descent isn't too lengthy, but it's quick and it's stark. And then back up they go for quite some time, and then down again. Over the period of a 7-game series, you're going to have these micro games, micro moments, micro slumps, and then micro bursts. I can't see how the Leafs fall apart for a substantial enough period of time within this series to not be able to overcome a team like Montreal or Calgary in the first round. And if the Leafs get into a fire wagon game with a team like Edmonton, even in the playoffs, like you got to think that they're going to be able to come out of it. That's the Winnipeg thing. Sorry. Go ahead. It's Winnipeg that I think the Leafs are going to end up against, and that will be a knock them down, drag them out. Not necessarily physical, but just but which by any means necessary, and that could be a series for the ages. Just the last couple points, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, Edmonton playing a wide open game in the playoffs would play right into the Leafs' hands. I think the Leafs have all confidence.
That's all they know how to do, though.
Right. But Winnipeg can play more of a tactical match, and Paul Maurice is a very good coach. But Montreal, see, that's again, Montreal with their defense, with their size, with Carey Price if he's healthy, can play 2-1 playoff hockey. That's what they did against Pittsburgh. And honestly, that we have seen how the Leafs over certain points of this season have gotten frustrated by a team playing basically a trap or playing sort of shutdown hockey, and guys like Matthews and Marner, getting opportunities and not being able to score. That is a series that they could lose. That's why I don't think that they're going to underestimate anybody that they play against, especially Montreal with guys like Weber and guys like Price in their lineup. So, the funny thing is, like I said, they have 8 games remaining. They play 4 against Montreal. If they sweep Montreal might be out of the playoffs. But do you think that the Leafs are going to expend so much energy as to want to sweep Montreal in the regular season? Probably not. So more than likely, it's going to be Montreal who they play against in the first round. And they play Montreal 3 times. Sorry, they played Montreal 3 times in the final week of the season, and those will end up being sort of playoff previews.
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. My AirPods connected. Hey, this is what happens when you put together a live show. OG's Carvers, you wanted it. And hey, we are who we are at this point. Yeah, and you think that when the Leafs feel like they've got enough room between themselves and the pack, and to just get prepped in more ways than physically for the playoffs, they'll have a taxi squad, maybe finish it up.
I think you're going to see down the stretch in the last 2.5 to 3 weeks, you're going to see some Ben Hutton. You're going to see some Nick Robertson and Adam Brooks get more ice time. You're going to see Matthews and Marner get a night off. Tavares get a night off. I think that they will use their roster and get some players some playing time.
Yeah. Hey, Tricks Beats, morning boys. What are the odds we see Thornton drop the gloves with Ehlers next game?
Nah,
fight it all. He seems like he's ready to go. I'm sure he's kicked the shit out of Ehlers a few times in his mind, but it would you know as well as we do, Tricks, that makes zero sense. Final game of the year, a geriatric like Thornton, breaking his hand before, like he's Joe Thornton. Okay, Joe Thornton was brought to this team to mentor guys, to help get guys ready to go. I mean, you can see the relationship a guy like that has with Marner and Matthews doing videos for Patrick Marleau. He is the elder statesman. There's no way anybody would ever disrespect that guy. I mean, he's as close to hockey holiness as it gets, not only in that dressing room, but right across the league. He was brought in to help guide this team through a playoff run because it could be Joe's last go. I'm sure he wants to be there when the Leafs win their 16th and hoist that damn jug and not watching from the press box or whatever because he's got a broken hand or he's injured. God bless this team, Mike. I love them. I'm happy for the success they've had. We get on them when they're down a bit, but we're rightfully behind them all the way and do accentuate and get excited about the things that they show are good about a team and what's possible. So let's hope that the final few games the team, plays well, stays healthy, evolves, and then when the curtain rises on the playoffs, just go at it, give it their best shot. What do you say?
Yeah, I'll say that the next consequential game may be in the middle of May when Game 1 starts. Right now, I think it's sort of to stay healthy, as you said, get a few points here or there, lock up the North Division, and we'll see what happens then.
OG's Conference, thanks for joining us in the chat. Please do us a favor, tell your friends about our project, the Leafs Convo. The more, the merrier on YouTube. Like this post, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell icon for all the notifications that you can handle. Mike and I are like the Maple Leafs. We're revving up for a great playoff run. And Mike, let's hope it's a long one. We've had too many combos in the past that have ended short with the Leafs season. And then it's like, we take a couple days off. And then the next time we get together, it's after a locker clean out, barely into the first quarter of an overall playoff schedule. I want this team to go deep, and I don't care where the hell they play when they cross the border, play in that semifinal and hopefully beyond. Have a great Sunday, guys. Mike, you too.
Thanks, Norm.